she says, pushing the button because she forgot to push it. It is lovely to see you, and I got to be inside today because it is breezy out there. It's a lovely morning. If you didn't see the shot from the top of the hill 10 minutes ago, please take a look. But it's too windy to live outside. You'd hear nothing but the wind. So being inside means rocks, and there is never a problem with being inside with the rocks. This is a piece of New Zealand. Good morning, Mike. Roberta, it's been ages. It's lovely to see you. Sangmarie, good morning. I'm getting to talk eventually. It's just lovely to see you jumping on. Great to see you. Good morning, everybody. So, this is a rock that, if I remember rightly, and I've always loved rocks, I picked this up many years ago now when I was quite a few years younger, and my eldest sister and I ended up going on a boat trip in the Hauraki Gulf, and we had landed on this little island with this, this guy who just invited probably my sister, but me as well, because she was older, out to go sailing around the Gulf. And so we did, and there was this island, and there were these lovely red and sort of red rocks. I mean, you can see the brownness. It was, and I just picked this up because it's gorgeous, and I love it. And today it said, I want to come on the live, so here it is. So good morning, everybody. Piece of New Zealand here. No, I don't know what sort of rock it is. It's just a rock. But it's beautiful. Look at the detail. I really do enjoy this. So, and you just keep turning it over and you see more stuff that you like. The angles, the planes. Don't know what it is, but it's beautiful. Now, this is another rock with a history. I would say that this is chrysocolla and malachite. And this is a piece of rock that was sitting in the china cabinet. It was my mother's with some other bits and pieces, in the house where I grew up when I was small. So this is the first, crystal type rock that I ever saw, really. And I wondered about it for years, long after I had stuff. Hi, Victor! Until I think I showed it to my friend Jenny, who knows a lot more about rocks than me, and she said, oh, well, it's probably chrysocolla and a bit of malachite. And I don't know where it came from, but my mother's English, so maybe it came from somewhere in England. Dunno. But there it is. The first crystal type, coloured, interesting rock that was ever in my life before I even knew about them. This one is much more recent. This is quartz. And, it's kind of black quartz, right? It's not particularly sparkly. It's not particularly perfect. It always reminds me a bit of a hedgehog. But I like it. I did buy it as black quartz. It's actually a little bit crumbly in places. It's, falling to pieces. But I really like it. Yeah, Mike, all of those green things are different forms of copper. So you're right. It's one of those copper whatnots. Malachite, chrysocolla, what's the other one? Azurite, all full of copper. That's what makes them green and blue. Now, this is quartz, and presumably it's been exposed to radiation at some time because the radiation is what turns clear quartz dark. So there you go. So those are our rocks for today. And today I want to talk about the moment, the situation when your life turns to shit. Okay. And it was a comment that, it was a thought that Andrew dropped a couple of days ago, and I thought, that's an interesting comment. I want to think about that. About the idea, and we were talking about anxiety and, crazy, brain, stress, right? And we were talking about that. And the comment was, well, maybe your brain goes like that when the soul is trying to wake you up, or the soul wants to do something and your brain wants to do something else, what you're used to. I can't remember the words, but I did reply at the time or afterwards, this is an interesting thought. I want to dig into this and see what comes out of it. And this is what came out of it. The thing that I understand, because of what I've learned from Dr. Joe Dispenza, let me just say that, because he's the source of much of my inspiration and so much useful information that actually is useful, not just spiritual philosophy that's all very great, but stuff that actually works, which, my heavens, I'm so grateful for. So what I learned from Joe, that the soul will eventually do something to wake you up, you know. Because if you're doing the same thing every day and thinking the same thoughts and feeling the same feelings and being the same person, and, you know, I mean, habits serve us right. You don't want to have to remember how to walk every day. You don't want to have to remember how to talk every day. You don't want to have to remember how to drive or how to, you know, ride your bike or your scooter or whatever. You don't want to have to remember how to do everything. Habits are great. It means they're hardwired. We do them on automatic. We don't think about them. And we go through our lives. By the time you're 35, believe me, 95% of what you do is automated. You just don't think about it unless you decide that you're going to. But what happens, you know, 35, okay, 95% of what you do is hardwired. Believe me, that's fact. This is not a criticism. It's just fact. It's what we are. And it serves us, except when it doesn't. But also what happens about that stage in your life is often you actually know how everything's going to feel before you get there. You know, somebody asks you to do a thing and you think, I know I like that or I don't like that. You know immediately. Your job, it's all the same. You've done it all. You've done, I mean, if you have the money and you know, you've been and visited everywhere. There's nothing else to do. It's like everything is kind of the same. It's like you're watching reruns all the time. And this is where a lot of midlife crisis comes from because, you know, people sort of do the thing of, oh, I need to have an affair. I need some excitement in my life. I need a new car. I want something that new, different, that's going to make me feel good. Because everything is kind of same. And whoever it is they're being that they haven't paid attention to forever because, you know, they just don't know to do that, is same. And maybe it isn't very nice. You know, and the soul is just saying, well, this is boring. Soul, you know, the soul wants to grow. The soul wants to have adventures. And, you know, you get busy, you have your life, you know, the sort of pattern of people grow up, they get their education with any luck, they get married, they have kids, they buy the house, they get the job, you know, and then they're stuck in the hamster wheel of needing to do that until you've paid off the house and then you retire and then, you know, whatever, however many years later you, whatever, finished, right? And it all starts to be very predictable. And people just start to get really antsy. Because what they're really feeling inside, which they were able to ignore while they were busy getting the career and the education and the family and the house and everything organised, now there's nothing new to distract them from whatever's going on. And it's all very same, you know, you get the sort of, and something has to change. And at this point, the soul says, right, well, we need some disruption here. Something's got to shift. Or we're just going to stay here forever and, you know, watching the same rerun every day is kind of boring. And it will do what it has to do to get your attention. Well, that's excellent, Roberta. But do you know that even chaos can be what is predictable to us? So it's not necessarily about the comfortable routine. We can actually have it be normal that we're in chaos. Or we can have it be normal that we're confused. Or we can have it be normal that we're sick. Or we can have, you know. And it just becomes who we are and how our lives are. So thank you for raising that point. Not the way you said it, but thank you for making me think of that, because you could think that I'm talking about everybody living the so-called perfect life and getting sick of it. No, you can be having a really imperfect life, but it's just how it's always been. And the soul is still watching reruns, and it wants something else. So your perfectly imperfect life can completely fall apart. And then, of course, you know, the stress happens. And this is the soul, which starts by tapping you on the shoulder, by the way. But the more entrenched we are in what we're used to, the harder it is to stop doing something else. Predictable chaos. Yeah, living on the edge of wonder and magic. That's wonderful. No problem. So the soul starts by tapping you on the shoulder, and, you know, and if you don't pay attention to the tap, well, then you tend to get the slap on the face, and if you don't pay attention to that, well, you know, you get the brick, and if you don't pay attention to the brick, you get the 4x2, and if you don't pay attention to the 4x2, you get the piano that falls out of the sky and hits you on the head. And we've all either seen or read or heard or even experienced that, where, there were little niggles and then they got louder and they got louder and then everything just collapsed. Some people have had that experience of, they get it in the same year or the same week. Their dog dies, they have a car accident, their relationship's over and they lose their job. This happens. That is the soul saying, you weren't listening. I have to get you so far out of your comfort zone, even if your comfort zone is painful, and frequently it is, that you can turn around and look at who you were and not feel like the same person. We have to stop feeling like who we've been used to being. And that is what actually happens when your life turns to shit and falls apart, is you don't feel like yourself anymore. And that gives you the liberty to look, and I'm looking left because that's where I think about. The past is on the left, the future's on the right, and that's just how my brain's organised. When we don't feel like who we are anymore, you are no longer playing reruns. You're no longer watching the same episode again and again and again in your life. You're jolted out of that. And ultimately, the soul will do this because the soul is eternal. And this is, again, if this isn't what you find to be true, that's fine. This is what I experience to be true. That the soul is eternal and has many expressions through the whole of time. We get to do everything. The soul is not really concerned with my survival in this particular lifetime because I don't end. I just go and have other experiences elsewhere. But in this particular lifetime, what the soul is interested in is having experiences. And when it is the same old, sooner or later something is going to change because the soul wants to have an experience. And so, depending on how much it takes to get you to pay attention, that's when things can go absolutely crazy. Spirals and synchronicities look like chaos. They give you wings. If you are able to do what you have to do to realise that chaos is an opportunity, and are you going to expend all your energy trying to get things back the way they were? And by the way, when it's exploded like that, you can't, even if you could get the person and the job and reverse the accident and everything else somehow in future, like it's all happened last week and you go, and then if it all changed back the next week, you wouldn't be the same person to go back into that life. It's changed you having that experience of the thing going, blah, right? So you're not the same person. You can't go back, even if you want to. Even if you want to, you can't go back. So then the only useful question to ask is, well, hello, who do I actually want to be now that it's all fallen apart? And you may feel like your life's gone to shit and it's vanished, it's disappeared. Luna, it's lovely to see you. But okay. And there is a grieving process, and there's something that Joe keeps saying, because I listen over and over to these things. Actually, it's in his book, that he says, maybe the grief that we experience when we have a loss is actually the biochemical shift that's happening in the body, right? Because we're used to a certain stimulus and a certain response. A certain person creates a certain reaction in our heads, and then we get a certain chemistry that's associated with that. And if that person, gives you lots of positive stimulus and you get positive feelings, and then suddenly they're gone because they die, well, then you don't get that positive stimulus anymore. And besides, there's a shock, and your body is, saying, hang on, where's my happy fix? And literally, the same thing, if you've been caring for somebody who's been sick for a long time and they pass over, and, caring for somebody who's been sick for a long time can be very stressful, and then suddenly that's finished, and your body is saying, okay, but that was really stressful, now I need my stress fix. We are all chemically addicted to our lives, and when our lives change, that chemistry changes. And a lot of the time life changes slowly and we don't really notice that chemical discomfort, which goes with pruning of synapses and letting things go and creating new things. But when it happens suddenly, we do. And when your soul slaps you down hard, that's the very visceral physical pain, is the fact that my life has changed. It's all fallen to shit around me. I can't think the same thoughts and have the same feelings and feel like myself anymore. And that chaos gives you the opportunity. You don't have to kick the noise child off the bus, just don't let them drive. I love that. Yeah, and the ego, by the way, this is something else I learned which finally made sense of the ego to me. Are you ready? Your ego is not your enemy. Your ego is simply trying to keep you alive. Clear, honey. So relax, okay? Relax and let go because you can't go back. You cannot go back. And your soul is saying, hello, here's chaos. What do you want to create with it? What do you want to create with it? And I had a thought and it's gone, but it'll come back to me because it's, it does happen. The ego, thank you. The ego is not your enemy. The ego is the part of you that if you're on a nature walk and there's a narrow path and there's a big cliff on the, one side of you, your ego is the survival instinct that says, let's stick close to the other side of the path that's away from the drop. Your ego is the survival part of your brain that says, shit, there's a car coming across the road, I got to jump out of the way. That is what your ego is, and it's adaptive and it's supportive and it's helpful to keep you alive. When it becomes a problem is when you are running on stress hormones, when you are out of balance, when your brain is incoherent, you are in survival. You're only going to fight or run away or freeze. And when you are constantly in that state, because if you need to run away from a lion, your ego is going to protect you, right? Your ego's great like that. But if you are constantly in the state of running away from the lion and there is no lion, but you're at work or you're at home with your family and your only choices are to run, to fight or to flee, well, you're going to behave like a complete asshole. That is the problem with ego, is when you're stuck in stress. Then the ego is, it's like, oh my God, I need to be running away from something or fighting something, and it just finds what it finds to behave that way with because it's just running away from a lion. That's all it means. Your ego is not your enemy. It's trying to protect you. But if you are behaving egotistically or whatever in places and ways that you don't want to be, that means your brain's out of balance and you're in survival. Rather than coming from your heart, you're just running from a lion. That's it. So ego is your friend as long as you're in balance. Now, if you're not in balance, your ego becomes a real problem because you're just an amped up animal. You will fight, you will claw your way to the front of the line, you will walk over people, you won't be sensitive, you won't pay attention, all of that stuff. It's because you're in survival, it's not because your ego is your enemy. There was such sense to me when Joe explained it like this. Oh, finally, a definition of the ego that makes sense to me and doesn't require me to say, oh, well, that's egoic and that's spiritual and, there's so much bullshit. I'm sorry, I have to say it. So much bullshit out there about what ego is. That is ego. It's your survival instinct. And when you're in balance, it's no problem. It looks after you. When you're out of balance and in stress, it makes you horrible. But it's just it's adaptive as long as you understand that's what it's about. So if your life is turning to shit, it is very easy to get stuck in stress, and then the ego, is running the show, and you find yourself clawing your way over people. You think, hang on a minute. Oh, I don't like that. And the invitation in that chaos, in that dissolution of who you used to be, the old self is gone, it's dissolved, it's vanished, it's like, where is my old life? I'm in the void. I don't know who I am. I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know how to feel. I'm missing my old self. And remember, there's that chemical discontinuity, because you can't just carry on thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same feelings, and being the same person. That life is gone and you miss it. Understand that's what's going on. But that chaos Just like, here's planet Earth going on doing its thing. Oh, gee, we have a pandemic and everything is gone. It's a reboot. It's a reset. It's not the end. But it is a new beginning, and it's unpredictable and it's unknown. And that means there's opportunity to create. If you understand what it is that you're missing firing the same thoughts and feeling the same feelings and doing the same behaviors day after day after day, and that feels weird and strange and even painful, then you won't be quite so fearful about the fact that that's what's going on. You'll just get intentional about deciding who you do want to be. That's what it's for. Your soul is saying, wake up. You've gone to sleep. You've been doing the same thing all the same time. It's not Gaia's midlife crisis, Andrew, although I know what you're saying. Gaia's fine. Gaia is resilient. This is humanity's midlife crisis. Shafi, have a listen to the lives from yesterday and the day before. Pain and suffering means you're in survival, dude, and you got to slow your brain down and get your attention off it and stop firing and wiring those thoughts and feelings, because we get addicted to our pain and suffering, and we just have to stop paying attention to it and slow the brain down and put the attention on what we do want to feel and what we do want to think. And it's hard because it's so addictive. It's so addictive. Pain and suffering is addictive because it's stress hormones, and the body gets addicted to stress hormones. And so it will fight you when you want to take your attention off those things and put it on something else. That's it. There's no easy answer. If you want to stop feeling pain and suffering, you actually have to stop feeling pain and suffering and understand that it's an addiction and get your attention onto something else. It's too simple, but that's actually it. And that's why it's so hard. And so when your life dissolves and you're feeling pain and suffering, understand that is the stress hormones, and you have to break that emotional refractory period. You just have to stop it and get out of it any way you can. And for me, the only thing that I found that works is this work that I've learned from Dr. Joe. Period. And it's worth the effort to make it work, even if you have a wrestling match with yourself. I talked about that this week too. So if you've got questions about that, either drop them in specific or go and watch the last week's lives. Find the one that you think, oh, that could be useful. It is Friday. We've got resonant replays coming over the weekend, and for some reason I feel inspired to remind you that as a coach I have decided to offer an 8-week series of 1-hour sessions. And so if that interests you, and this is a chance for you to take an 8-week block of time and make a change. If that interests you, contact me. The information you can find on my website. There's a link in the bottom of this post. And primarily, I'm interested in working with you if you want to make a change. If you look at the money and you think, oh, I don't know if I can do that, talk to me. I'm negotiable because I know what that's like. Big love. I'll see you Monday. Bye-bye.